Galway Wool, rare heritage wool, grown with care and pride from our native Irish breed of sheep. At the Galway Wool Co-op, all our wool is specially selected from registered pedigree Galway sheep, given provenance dating back over 100 years. Our partners are creating and making with authentic native Irish wool. Galway wool is 100% natural and renewable, with each sheep growing a new fleece every year. It's recyclable and biodegradable, enriching nature with elemental nutrients beneficial for plant life and helps overcome microplastic pollution. Choosing Galway wool as a natural fibre is an environmentally sustainable choice, including social and economic benefits to Ireland. From the clothes we wear to the rugs and carpets under our feet, it is comforting to know the true source of your wool. An rud is anam besiantach. What is rare is wonderful. Galway wool, woven by nature.
And now we are going to connect with Blatnaid Gallagher from the Galway Wool Co-op. She's a co-founder and she's in the sheep shed. And she advocates using local, authentic Irish wool. And she also believes that if we get together and join together across Europe, then we can support each other and we can break the dependency on monobreed wool supplies. So let's join her and welcome her.
Hello, everybody. Kalispera, Yamas, and Fáilte from Ireland. Thank you very much for inviting us, the Galway Wool Co-op, to be part of this wonderful European Wool Day. And yes, to carry on from that wonderful introduction, and thanks very much for that wonderful introduction. We have a lot of wool that's imported here into Ireland and is sold as Irish wool. And we have a lot of wool, tons, thousands of tons of wool exported every year onto the Asian carpet markets. And it probably comes back to us, and maybe it doesn't. But there is an anomaly there, and there's a lot of disconnect. And through my research, I was a research student on my master's at National University of Ireland here, and I discovered that there was a lot of ambiguity in the whole Irish woolen industry and in the industry in general, in the international industry. And I think where wool comes from and the source of wool right back to farm level is an opportunity that we as growers, that we as woolers are missing out on, because the price of wool has been devalued. And when I say devalued, I actually would like to change that word from devalued to suppressed. So as wool growers, we have actually a very weak voice. And as we are so disconnected, unlike our wool growers in the southern hemisphere, we're so disconnected as wool growers in the northern hemisphere, and that's from Canada right back to the western coast of Ireland. We're so disconnected that we have allowed the wool industry, the international wool industry, to convince us that our wool is A, it's waste, and B, that it's coarse and it's worthless. And the longer and the louder that we've been told that, I think sadly some aspects of agriculture and wool production have started to believe it. So I wanted to change that, and I wanted to inform the owners and the shepherds of this wonderful and very rare native breed that their wool was special. Special because it was so rare, and special also because it was so closely linked to the iconic Aran sweater, which was actually the foundation stone of our thriving Irish wool industry. So I think really what I wanted to talk to, my fellow wool growers all over Europe today about was regaining pride and regaining a sense of unity amongst each others, so that strong wool is no longer coarse wool, and that we change the language around how our wool is described and how we are described. We are the primary producer. We are the source of this raw material. But I think it would be very naive as a group of very fragmented growers all over the Northern Hemisphere to believe that the wool price was going to bounce, and it was going to bounce that way. I think in order for it to bounce that way, we need to start to have a little bit more pride and a little bit more belief in the fact that the wool that we produce is the wool that should be in our homes, and it is the wool that should be in our fabrics, and it is the wool that should be adorned in industry here in the Northern Hemisphere and across Europe. And I think the way to do that is that we must unite, and we must encourage legislation to change so that where wool grows and how that farmer or how that wool grower is remunerated is very much part of that product passport. Because what I've noticed myself over the last few years, that there's a lot of talk and a lot of blowing in the wool industry about where wool comes from, but nobody's talking about the primary producer and what that primary producer is being paid. So we managed, through the very good and very kind sponsorship of Donegal Yarns here in Ireland, to raise the price from 20 cent a kilo to €2.50. And why? Because Donegal valued the fact that that wool was rare. They valued the fact that we committed to being able to source it right back to farm. They can tell their consumer, it's a business to business relationship, but they can further add value to the product that they're offering by being able to award their consumer information about where that wool actually comes from. And I think that's what I wanted to talk to people about today, and to find out, is there a hunger out there for us to increase the price of wool at the farm gate? And if so, do we and can we see the value of sourcing and labelling and traceability back to farm gate? Because as wool growers, if we expect that wool is going to thrive and we're going to thrive on that, it's a very naive place to be. The smaller the price that the manufacturer or the producer or the processor is paying for the raw material, the better for them. It is in no way in their interest to try and increase a raw material price. So we as growers need to wake up and as we say around these parts of the world, cop on to the reality that as growers, the only person and the only people who are going to put value on our wool is ourselves. And I believe the way we're going to do that is to unite across Europe and across the Northern Hemisphere, and to be proud of strong wool, and to be very proud of the value that strong wool. And most importantly, my message today is all about having huge pride in a farmer and a wool producer, somebody involved in agricultural textiles, being rewarded, and not just rewarded, but being adequately remunerated for the produce that they are producing. Yes, we will have to be more conscious about our breed selection. Yes, we need to be more conscious about our presentation. But yes, we must take back control. It is imperative that as wool growers, we unite and take back control of the price that we get at the farm gate. Nobody, no producer, no matter how much effort we put into finding, markets for wool or finding alternative uses for wool, that doesn't include the wool grower unless we make ourselves included in that process. And I suppose that's the message that I was trying to get across today, that maybe following on from the conference, that we can unite as wool growers across Europe to encourage, the EU to adequately recognise the wool grower and the farm and where that wool grows from, and to put in the metrics, put in the stops, to actually put in, a traceability system similar to what we have with our food. If you look at an awful lot of people now, they're starting to take huge interest, especially post-pandemic, about where their food comes from. And we're at a cusp. People want to know where their upholstery is coming from, where their carpets are coming from, where their insulation is coming from, and where all the other unique processes that Northern European and Northern Hemisphere wool can be brought to. But that will only happen if we unite together as a pan-European wool organisation to ensure that that source of wool right back to farm level is incorporated into EU legislation on all product passports. And I think that really is the emphasis of what I was trying to share and discuss with you today. We have a system here at the cooperative whereby we only accept wool from registered sheep owners. So the owners have to be actually breeders of the sheep, and those sheep have to be registered. So when Donegal Yarns or whatever customer we have for our harvest comes along, they're insured that wool they're getting and that story that they're giving to their consumer is actually authentic and is fully traceable, and that provenance is there right back to the farm level. So it can be done. We're doing it at the moment. We're doing it very successfully. We have about 40 members in the cooperative. We harvest once a year. We harvest about 5,000 kilos. We changed that price from 20 cent a kilo to €2.50 a kilo. We've created a brand. We've created logo. We're working on creating markets. One of the most important things that we've done as a cooperative is we have created huge pride in our story. Huge pride, and the fact that we are restoring this native breed, this breed that was on the EU farm animal extinction list only 40 years ago, is now moved from extinct to endangered. And we take great pride in the way we present that wool. It's dag-free, it's clean, it's from the registered pedigree, and it all comes together in one big harvest. So it can be done. If we can do it on a small scale, there's no reason why we can't do it at national level, and there's no reason why we can't do it at European level. But when I mentioned monoculture in my opening statement, I think it's very obvious that I'm referring to merino, which I personally believe is one of the best wools in the world. And I'm in awe of what the merino industry, a la the wool industry, has done for merino and what merino has done for the wool industry. But I believe that there are other breeds out there. And I believe that there are other breeds out there that aren't being farmed on the huge industrial scale that the merino has been farmed on, that can lend themselves beautifully, that can partner wonderfully with products, both interior and home products, and also textiles. And I think we have those breeds here in Europe. And I believe that we should work together to promote those breeds, whether they be indigenous or not, and whether they be, solely wool producing breeds or not. But I think that we have a lot to learn from each other, and I'm very, very keen. I'm very, very proud to be part of the European Wool Association and all the forthcoming research that Natalie and Dora have been sending my way, and I'm eagerly working my way through. So I'd like to take questions if that was possible, but if not, I'd like to be able to stay around and answer any questions that maybe fellow breeders of indigenous sheep breeds or native breeds would like to talk to me about, and how we went about setting up the cooperative.
Do we have any questions from the floor, or we can thank you, Blatnaid, for joining us today?
And these are the sheep, by the way, just in case anybody hasn't caught. They produce up to 5 kilos of strong wool, strong bovine, as it's known as, strong wool per annum. And they were very well got in Ireland about 50, 60 years ago. But sadly, when we started to concentrate on meat production, the value of this breed declined and she was almost extinct. But sorry, I'll stay quiet and I'll take questions.
Are there any questions? There's no questions, so thank you, Blatnaid, for joining us. You are a great advocate for European wool. It's always lovely to hear you.
Thank you.